So, is it reasonable for Senator Kamala Harris to attack another woman for saying that women should take some responsibility for their own safety? I don't think so.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit.
Welcome to the occupation. Hang your collar up inside. Hang your freedom higher.
It's the only way to be sure.
On March 13, 2019, the Senate confirmed Naomi Rao to fill the seat on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals vacated by Justice Kavanaugh when he ascended to the Supreme Court. The D.C. Circuit is an especially high-profile court, and a seat on it is often seen as preparation for a future appointment to the Supreme Court. That is, for instance, the primary reason the Democrat Party filibustered Miguel Estrada's nomination to that court for over 2 years. They simply could not abide a conservative Hispanic jurist being so well positioned to end up on the highest court, so they stonewalled his nomination by President Bush until he himself gave up. Something to think about when they whine about Merrick Garland. Well, Naomi Rao is a similar case. She's the daughter of Indian immigrants. She graduated from Yale and the University of Chicago Law School. She clerked for Justice Thomas and, after a stint at a premier international firm, worked for the Bush administration before becoming a law professor at George Mason's Antonin Scalia Law School. Rao is a member of the Federalist Society, a largely conservative legal organization. She is presumed to be pro-life, though I am not aware of any direct evidence of this. So, to sum up, she is a mid-40s first-generation female minority. Such a person, by all appearances, comes to the judiciary with a conservative, perhaps even originalist perspective, which makes her a true nightmare for the Democrats. They do not like the idea of conservative minorities being elevated to high positions in government. It undermines the entire basis of their identity politics formula for taking and holding power. So, naturally enough, they dug up any dirt they could find to sling at her. Fortunately, she appears to have had her wits about her entire life, so the only things they could find were some things she wrote when she was in college. Back when Kurt Cobain was alive and Bill Clinton was explaining why he couldn't keep his promise to lower middle-class taxes, she wrote some things about the then still somewhat new idea of date rape. So the Democrats send another first-generation woman of color, California Senator and candidate for President of the United States, Kamala Harris, to do their dirty work for them and try to get some traction with these 26-year-old college columns. Here's how it went.
You said when having a conversation with Senator Ernst, you said, quote, women should take certain steps to avoid becoming a victim. What steps do you have in mind that women should take to avoid becoming a victim of sexual assault?
Senator, it's just sort of a common sense idea about, for instance, excessive drinking. You know, that was advice that was given to me by my mother.
So that's one step you believe women should take to avoid becoming a victim of sexual assault?
It is just a way to make it less likely. It's not to blame the victim. Rape and sexual assault are horrible crimes, but we're talking about what can you do to keep yourself safe.
Are there other steps that you believe women should take to avoid becoming a victim of sexual assault?
That is one of the issues that I discussed. I'm not sure if there are others.
So do you believe if a woman does not take those steps that she is at fault or partially at fault for what happens to her?
No.
So what is the significance of taking those steps?
Well, I think it's just the significance of trying to avoid becoming a victim of any crime, right? We take different steps to try to protect ourselves from horrible crimes such as rape. And, and I think what we want is for women to not be victims.
Interestingly, Harris herself tweeted out video of that exchange on her own account. She apparently thought it made her look better than Rao, but then few if any people think that Kamala Harris is smart. The gist of Harris's attack is that the very suggestion that women ought to take some responsibility for their own safety and well-being is simply beyond the pale. Harris purportedly found her advice, written when she was in college, and most likely a rote repetition of advice given out at Yale's mandatory freshman orientation, quote, deeply troubling. Harris, a powerful woman in her mid-50s, says that expressing such ideas to young women is to engage in, quote, victim shaming, unquote. Such an attack might work against a white male in 2019, but it is stupid beyond belief to expect it to do any actual political damage to a minority mother of two, especially one who maintains her composure as well as Rao did. Which leads one to wonder why they even bothered. Thanks to Harry Reid nuking the filibuster the last time the Democrats controlled the Senate, the Republican majority didn't need any Democrat senators' votes to confirm her. And they have to know that this weak-sauce attack isn't going to stick any better if she ever gets nominated for the Supreme Court. No one who values individual freedom should allow this to go unchallenged. Personal liberty depends on the idea of individual responsibility. As Rao quite reasonably, but totally unnecessarily, said in response to Senator Harris, a woman who gets raped is in no way responsible for that happening, whether she takes the kinds of common-sense precaution Rao advises or not. But that doesn't mean it's a bad idea to take precautions or to advise people to do so. The whole premise of this attack is insane. To make it even more so, Harris characterized Rao's comments as defending men who commit such crimes. But then, as I said before, Harris is an idiot. Buttering her bread before she puts it in the toaster probably seems like a good idea to her. It is therefore entirely possible that this may well have seemed like a perfectly reasonable interpretation to her. What's more, the exact advice Harris attacked Rao for giving out as a college student in 1993 is currently on the webpage of the University of California, Berkeley Campus Police. UCPD, presumably with the approval of the state of California, of which Harris was Attorney General until 2 years ago, provides a whole slew of sexual assault prevention tips that Harris apparently believes are tantamount to victim shaming. A selection of these tips is on the screen now, including use alcohol sparingly, make sure your cell phone is charged and that you have money for a taxi, tell someone where you're going, who you'll be with, and when you'll be back, and to protect yourself, do not leave drinks unattended. A sane person of normal intelligence would consider this sort of advice empowering, but teaching young women that they should look out for their own welfare is apparently double plus ungood wrongthink when a conservative woman does it. Now, Kamala Harris is, as all good progressive aspirants to power must be, a gun grabber. Of course, as is the case with most progressives who don't want citizens to have guns, she herself gets the benefit of armed protection at taxpayer expense whenever she wishes, which is often. I guarantee you Harris locks the doors on her house and her car when she leaves them. I would imagine she keeps her money in a bank, and that she carries various forms of insurance, most likely at much higher levels than whatever may be required by law. And I sincerely doubt even someone smarter than Harris could make a cognizable argument why any of these common sense means protecting oneself are in any way different from advising women not to engage in behaviors that increase the likelihood they'll be sexually assaulted. Senator Harris has no children of her own, but it beggars belief that she wouldn't want her college-age stepdaughter to practice the sort of self-protective measures she accused Rao of victim shaming for suggesting were a good idea. So one really has to wonder why it seemed like a wise choice to go after Rao this way. There is one likely explanation for Harris taking this absurd and, frankly, disgusting line of attack against Rao. You see, this hearing came up mere weeks after it got out that she had a hand in covering up multiple sexual harassment claims while she was California Attorney General. When this hearing was held, Harris had just announced that she was running for president, but news reports were piling up about the state of California paying at least $1.1 million to settle sexual harassment claims against her male subordinates. One of these men alone gave rise to a $400,000 settlement of a complaint made against him in 2016, yet he was still one of Harris's top aides until the story came out in December of 2018. Harris says she didn't know about it. With most people, that wouldn't pass the smell test, but Harris is dumber than a sack of hammers, so who knows? Maybe it's true. Now, Occam's razor says that Harris's handlers knew that she needed to buy back some credibility on the Me Too front. So what if it took defaming a fellow first-generation woman of color and possibly preventing her from achieving what she'd worked so hard for her entire life to do it? Those omelets aren't going to make themselves, you know.